let's talk about a couple different variables of builds. Typically, your big builds are going to be through the bridge as you ramp back up to go back into the chorus or into a musical interlude. Occasionally, like on a Revelation song by Jesus Culture on the second verse, Kim likes drama, she once told me. So, she starts building halfway through the verse, like all the way into the chorus. You may find builds at different areas of songs, but many times it's on the bridge. So let me give you a couple demonstrations of builds that you can do. Now, they typically start simpler, and then they build to double time, and then go to 30-second notes all the way to a big fill into the strong chorus as you get back out of the bridge into the chorus. So let me give you a very, very basic worship, maybe Bethel style build right now. Now, depending on how long the bridge is, you may spread those parts out, but many times it just starts with the kick on whole notes or quarter notes and your snare and tom, usually on 16th notes, and then you can pick up the kick to match the 16th notes. And then sometimes at the very end, for the very last repetition, you'll go to 30 seconds. So that's a very basic build. The other thing you can do is actually put pushes on the one. So it's like this. So you can add some pushes on the bars, but again, not too frequent because you want to leave space for the band to build. You're creating those buckets of time for the rest of the band. The other option is sometimes builds have toms incorporated. So let me demonstrate that. So toms can be incorporated into a build. The other thing that you have is like a 30-second build where you have to work on the speed of your stick work. So I'm going to demonstrate that. Slow it down to about 78. You're going to have that happen occasionally, but again, you're going to have to work on your speed to get there and deliver that kind of a build. It's a little bit more technical. So let's talk about team dynamics and playing with the worship band. So it is really important that if you have an MD, that you have the MD mic turned up nice and loud so you can hear where the transitions are going to happen when you're going to go to a bridge, a chorus, a verse, or repeat the verse, so that you can actually make sure that you don't do a false build, like you're going to transition and they're like, oh, we're going back into the verse. If you can work with your MD or your lead worship leader to make sure that you are setting up the transition appropriately and waiting for those transitions and not executing them prematurely, that is super important. The other thing that you can do, like we've talked about, is not overplaying. Again, you can add some diversity in your kick patterns, snare patterns, come back in tight, but you're not going to be doing fills every 4 beats because that's going to overwhelm people and it's going to actually take away from what's happening in the song and draw attention to yourself, which is not what we want to do. We want to play tastefully and lead people to Jesus. So don't overplay. It's also going to be super important for you to lock in with the bass player. So you want to have the bass and the click track turned up loud enough that they're not going to get drowned out by any of the other musicians. And that is on a condition that you should always have the click track louder than everything. I occasionally have to turn musicians in the band down if like acoustic players or bass players, if they're not playing on the click, if they're not professional enough or not experienced enough to stay on the click. It is hard for me to not listen to those other musicians and start getting off. So if somebody's off, sometimes, unfortunately, it's better just to turn them down quite a bit so that the click is driving you, because the whole band is relying on the drummer to hold the tempo down. No one else in the band should have to hold to the tempo but you. Everybody should be leaning back on your expertise of holding to the click. But as long as the bass player is experienced enough, have the bass player nice and loud. So I'm going to give you an example of a bass line. The bass player is going to start playing, and I'm going to play on top of them, and we're going to lock in. Here's the example. So the bass and kick drum should be locked in. That creates the floor of the song. You should be, if you can see the bass player, you can watch their fingers. If it's hard to pick the bass line out of the mix in your ears, or you're in mid-worship and you can't make an adjustment, look at the bass player's fingers, look at the pattern that they're playing. They should be looking at your kick drum pedal to follow what you're doing. Sync up so that it feels a cohesiveness, and then remember to scoop on the backbeat of your snare to create groove. Your bass player will really appreciate that.